Emma Matthews wasn't like most teenagers at West Haven High. While her classmates rushed through crowded hallways, their noses buried in phones or backpacks slung carelessly over one shoulder, Emma moved carefully, her hand resting lightly on the soft harness of her service cat, Miso. Miso was a sleek, silver tabby with sharp green eyes and an uncanny sense of Emma's needs. Born with a rare calm temperament and trained from kittenhood, Miso could sense obstacles, alert Emma to curbs or steps, and even guide her to familiar rooms by scent. For Emma, who had lost most of her vision by the age of 8 due to a degenerative eye condition, Miso wasn't just a pet. He was her lifeline, her world. Most people were surprised at first. A cat as a service animal? It sounded like a fairy tale. But the students and teachers who paid attention saw something magical between the girl and her cat. Emma would smile softly as Miso led her down the hallways, tapping her shoulder with his paw to signal a turn or gently meowing when someone carelessly left a backpack in the middle of the floor. With Miso by her side, Emma moved through life with a quiet, determined grace. Of course, not everyone appreciated the bond. There were whispers behind her back. A few students, mostly the loud, insecure ones, snickered and called Miso names like the blind girl's kitty or Miss Whiskers the helper. Emma pretended not to hear them. Miso would sometimes flatten his ears in annoyance, sensing the tension, but Emma would scratch behind his ear and murmur, "Ignore them, buddy. They don't know anything." There were good moments too. Mrs. Carter, the biology teacher, loved to sneak Miso little treats when Emma wasn't looking. Coach Dan let Emma and Miso sit in the bleachers during gym class so she could safely cheer for her friends. And even Principal Harris, a usually stern man, smiled every time Miso trotted into his office like he owned the place. Emma knew she was lucky in many ways. She had parents who fought to get Miso officially approved as her service animal. She had a few solid friends who defended her when others mocked. And she had Miso, loyal, clever, and always there. That afternoon, after the final bell rang, Emma found her favorite bench under the old oak tree by the soccer fields. She sat quietly with Miso curled at her feet, feeling the warm breeze brush her skin and listening to the distant shouts of a soccer practice. She didn't need to see to know the world was alive and beautiful. She reached down and gently ran her fingers through Miso's fur. "Best boy in the world," she whispered. Miso rumbled a purr so deep it vibrated against her shoes. For a little while it was just the two of them. No bullies, no worries, just the bond between a girl and her cat. Unshakable, unbreakable, or so Emma believed. Tomorrow everything would change. At first, the teasing had been nothing more than annoying background noise. A few whispered jokes, some fake meows when Emma passed by, or the occasional crumpled note tossed at her feet. Emma had gotten good at pretending not to hear, holding her head high and focusing on the steady, reassuring presence of Miso trotting beside her. But lately, things were different. The snickers were louder, the jokes sharper. The ringleader was a boy named Troy, loud, popular, and always desperate for attention. Troy thought it was hilarious to mock Emma's seeing cat and had quickly gathered a small group of followers. Cassie, who rolled her eyes dramatically every time Miso passed by, and Devin, who wasn't smart enough to come up with his own jokes but was always eager to laugh along. "Hey Emma, you gonna get Miso a tiny little seeing eye vest next?" Troy cackled one afternoon near her locker. "Maybe teach him to drive her home, too." Devin chimed in, almost tripping over himself in excitement at his own joke. Emma didn't stop to respond. She knew better. She simply knelt to check Miso's harness, using the moment to steady herself. Miso pressed gently against her side, sensing her unease. Most students either stayed silent or shot her awkward, sympathetic glances. A few teachers muttered warnings at the bullies but didn't stick around to enforce them. It was easy for people to brush off teasing when they didn't have to hear it every day. The pranks grew, small but mean. One morning, Emma found her locker covered in fake cat fur glued to the door. Another time, someone slipped a can of cheap cat food into her backpack. She discovered it during third period, her books reeking of the foul smell. Through it all, Miso remained her steady anchor. His gentle purrs, his careful taps guiding her around unseen obstacles. They were tiny lifelines in an increasingly hostile sea. She confided once in her best friend, Lila, who urged her to tell the principal. But Emma shook her head. "If I make a big deal about it," she said quietly, "they'll just come up with something worse. I'll be fine. As long as I have Miso, I'll be fine." Still, even she could feel it. The tension tightening, the stares lingering longer, the cruel smiles sharpening around the edges. Something was building. One afternoon, as Emma waited near the front doors for her mom to pick her up, she heard Troy and Cassie whispering not far away. First, she didn't pay attention. But then she heard it. A low, malicious chuckle and the unmistakable words, "Bet she wouldn't last a day without that cat." Emma tightened her grip on Miso's harness, her heart pounding. She pretended not to hear, just like always, but a chill ran down her spine. When her mom's car finally pulled up, she practically bolted toward it, Miso keeping pace with a small, worried meow. Inside the car, she sat stiffly, feeling the weight of invisible eyes still on her. Miso curled up on her lap, his body warm and real and safe. She buried her hand in his fur, breathing in his familiar, comforting scent. "I've got you," she whispered, and for now she did. But if the glint she saw in Troy's eyes meant anything, she knew they were planning something worse. And this time, they might not just settle for whispers and pranks. The school assembly had been nothing special. A routine event in the crowded gym, full of restless students and echoing speeches about responsibility and leadership. Emma had sat near the back, her hand resting lightly on Miso's harness, comforted by his warm presence amid the noisy chaos. She wasn't sure when it happened. One moment, Miso was there, his small body pressed against her leg. The next, gone. When the assembly ended and students began to spill into the hallways, Emma stood up, reaching automatically for Miso, but her fingers brushed only empty space. "Miso?" she whispered, panic flickering in her chest. She knelt down, running her hands across the floor in the small area around her, feeling for the soft fur, the steady little weight she relied on. Nothing. Her heart started hammering. She called again, louder this time. "Miso?" No answer. No responding purr. No tiny paws tapping toward her. The crowd thickened as kids streamed past, chattering and laughing. Someone jostled her shoulder. Another bumped into her backpack. She felt small, invisible, and suddenly very, very alone. "Are you okay, Emma?" It was Mr. Hawthorne, her English teacher. His voice sounded concerned. I can't find Miso," she stammered. She barely got the words out before Mr. Hawthorne was waving over another teacher. Within minutes, a small search party had formed, combing the gym and the surrounding halls. Emma stayed rooted to the spot, clutching her white cane with one hand and Miso's empty harness in the other, as footsteps echoed all around her. Check the bleachers. Maybe he slipped out into the hallways. Someone checked the cafeteria. Emma tried to stay calm, but her mind spiraled. What if he's hurt? What if someone took him? What if he's scared and hiding and no one can find him? She swallowed a sob and focused on breathing slowly, the way Miso always seemed to remind her to do without even trying. Except now he wasn't here. Minutes turned into an hour. The search widened, classrooms, restrooms, even the parking lot. Mr. Hawthorne stayed with her, giving updates in a gentle voice, but Emma could tell from the tension in his words that hope was slipping. Finally, the principal himself came over, his voice low and serious. "We're very sorry, Emma. We're going to keep looking. But it's possible someone may have taken him. Taken him." The words landed like a punch to the gut. Emma felt her knees buckle. She sank onto the bench by the gym doors, pressing the empty harness against her chest. A tear slid down her cheek, then another. She didn't care if anyone saw. The world felt darker and more confusing than it ever had before, as if someone had taken not just Miso, but her sense of direction, her confidence, her ability to walk through the world without fear. Through the haze of fear and sadness, a single thought crystallized, burning sharp and clear. "I have to find him." Emma wiped her tears, her hands shaking. "I'm not giving up," she whispered fiercely to herself. "Not now. Not ever." Somewhere out there, Miso needed her just as much as she needed him. And no matter what it took, she was going to bring him home. The day after Miso's disappearance, Emma walked through the school halls feeling hollow. Every sound, every slam of a locker, every burst of laughter made her flinch. Without Miso by her side, the school felt unfamiliar and threatening, like a maze she no longer knew how to navigate. Still, she kept her head high, her cane tapping steadily against the floor. She wasn't going to crumble, not when Miso needed her. At lunch, as she sat quietly at the end of a table, picking at her food, someone slid into the seat across from her. "Hey, Emma," a voice said softly. It was Rachel, one of the quieter girls from her history class. Emma didn't know her well, but she sounded nervous and determined. I heard something," Rachel whispered, leaning closer. Emma's heart leapt. Rachel continued, glancing over her shoulder. "Yesterday, before the assembly, I heard Brett and those guys, the ones who always mess with you, talking near the lockers. They said something about teaching the cat girl a lesson and hiding something during the chaos." She paused, as if scared to go on. "I think they took Miso." Emma's hands clenched into fists under the table. She had suspected it deep down, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach churn. "They didn't say where?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Rachel shook her head. "No, but I think Brett's brother works at the old storage facility near 5th Street. They hang out there sometimes." She hesitated again. "I'm really sorry. I should have said something sooner." Emma forced a small smile. "You're helping now. That's what matters." Rachel looked relieved and quickly left before anyone could see them talking. Emma's mind whirred. Storage facility. 5th Street. It wasn't much, but it was something. That afternoon, after classes, Emma pulled aside Ms. Kaplan, her favorite teacher. Ms. Kaplan had always been kind, the kind of adult who really listened. When Emma explained what she knew, Ms. Kaplan's face grew serious. "You shouldn't go near those boys alone," she said firmly. "But I know someone who might be able to help." She made a quick call, and 20 minutes later, Emma was sitting in a quiet office in the admin building across the street, facing Detective Leo Saunders, a friend of Ms. Kaplan's and a community officer who sometimes helped the school with safety issues. Detective Saunders spoke in a calm, warm voice. "I heard about your situation, Emma. I know Miso isn't just a pet. He's your partner, your independence." He leaned in a little. "And I want to help." Emma's throat tightened with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. They made a plan together. Detective Saunders would start by discreetly visiting the storage facility, pretending to be following up on a different case, and keep an eye out for any signs of a hidden animal. Meanwhile, Ms. Kaplan and some trusted staff would monitor Brett and his friends carefully, looking for slip-ups. For the first time in days, Emma felt a tiny flame of hope flickering back to life. She wasn't alone. People cared, and Miso might be closer than she feared. That evening, Emma sat by her bedroom window, feeling the cool breeze against her face. Somewhere out there, her best friend was waiting for her. Somewhere, Miso was counting on her. "We're coming, Miso," Emma whispered into the night. "Just hold on." The next morning, Emma barely touched her breakfast. Every minute without Miso gnawed at her. But today was different. Today there was a plan. Detective Saunders had confirmed it. Brett's brother was indeed renting an old storage unit on 5th Street. He couldn't legally enter without a warrant, but he could be nearby watching. Meanwhile, Emma's friends, Rachel, Marcus, and Ava, volunteered to come along, pretending they were just hanging out in the area. Miss Kaplan had called Emma's parents too, and after a long, serious talk, they agreed. Emma needed to see this through. By noon, the small group gathered near the crumbling fence that surrounded the dusty storage facility. It smelled like rust and motor oil, the air thick and dry. Emma tightened her grip on her white cane, heart pounding. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice edged with worry. Emma nodded. "This isn't just about a cat," she said, voice firm. "It's about the part of me they tried to take." Detective Saunders gave a subtle nod from where he stood leaning against his unmarked car nearby. He was ready in case anything went wrong. Rachel pointed toward a row of old units along the side. "I heard them mention number 27, she whispered. Emma's palms were sweaty. She couldn't see clearly, but she could feel every step as they moved closer, gravel crunching under their feet. Unit 27 had a dented, rusty metal door with a cheap padlock, slightly loose, as if tampered with. There were faint sounds from inside. "Was it Miso?" "Let's do it," Ava said under her breath. Marcus produced a hairpin he'd grabbed from his sister's room. They had practiced earlier how to pop a flimsy lock like this one. His hands shook as he fiddled with it, but after a tense minute, the lock popped open with a sharp click. Emma's heart leapt into her throat. She grabbed the door handle and hesitated for a second. Her friends crowded around her. Then, with a deep breath, she yanked the door open. Inside, in a dim, dusty space filled with broken furniture and discarded junk, a tiny cry pierced the silence. "Miso!" Emma cried out. Tucked into a battered cardboard box was her beloved cat. His silky fur matted, his green eyes wide and terrified. He meowed again, louder this time, struggling to stand up on wobbly legs. Emma dropped her cane, rushing forward on instinct. She scooped Miso into her arms, feeling his body tremble against hers. Tears streamed down her face. You're okay," she whispered over and over, clutching him tightly. Miso butted his head against her chin, a soft purr vibrating through his small body. It was weak, but it was real. He was alive. He remembered her. Behind her, she heard her friends cheering quietly, a few of them wiping away tears of their own. Detective Saunders appeared in the doorway, his expression grave but relieved. "Time to get you both home," he said gently. "And don't worry, the school and the authorities will be handling Brett and the others." Emma cradled Miso closer, pressing her cheek against his fur. For the first time in days, she felt whole again. The part of her heart that had been torn apart was finally mending. As they walked out of the storage yard, the late afternoon sun warming their backs, Emma knew one thing for sure. They could never break the bond she and Miso shared. Not with cruelty, not with fear, not with anything. Together, they were unstoppable. The next few days unfolded like a dream. A strange, surreal dream that Emma wasn't sure she believed at first. Word about what had happened to Miso spread fast. By the time she returned to school, clutching Miso's special carrier tightly, the atmosphere had shifted. Students who had once whispered and snickered now offered shy smiles and apologies. Some even brought little cards and treats for both Emma and Miso. The principal, Mr. Granger, had called a special assembly. Emma sat near the front. Miso perched quietly beside her, wearing his tiny service vest once again like a badge of honor. Detective Saunders stood on stage, his badge glinting under the gym lights. He spoke firmly about responsibility, cruelty, and the importance of protecting those who couldn't defend themselves. And then, for the first time since that horrible day, the bullies Brett, Jenna, and Max were called up. They stood awkwardly on the stage, faces flushed and heads hanging low. Mr. Granger announced their punishment clearly for all to hear. 3-week suspensions, effective immediately. Mandatory community service at the local animal shelter. Court-ordered counseling sessions focused on empathy and understanding disabilities. A murmur went through the crowd. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was real consequences. Emma watched them, her heart pounding. She didn't feel victorious. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted them to understand the pain they had caused, not just to her, but to Miso too. After the formal announcements, Mr. Granger asked Emma if she would like to say a few words. The gym went quiet. Hundreds of eyes turned to her. Emma's legs trembled slightly as she stood, feeling for the microphone. Miso brushed against her ankle, steadying her in the way only he could. Taking a breath, Emma began. "I never wanted to be different," she said. "I didn't choose to need a service animal. But Miso isn't just a helper, he's my family. He gives me freedom. He gives me courage. Her voice wavered for a second, but she pressed on. Kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about how you treat the people and animals around you when no one's watching. She paused, feeling the weight of her words settle in the room. Strength isn't bullying the ones who are different. Real strength is standing up for them. A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by a few sniffles from the back rows. Emma smiled softly and finished. I'm proud to be different, and I'm proud to have Miso by my side. Thunderous applause erupted. Students stood. Teachers clapped. Even the janitor dabbed at his eyes with his sleeve. Afterward, dozens of classmates approached Emma. Some she barely knew, offering hugs, kind words, and promises to be better. It was overwhelming, but in the best way. Later, as Emma sat under the big oak tree near the school parking lot, Miso curled up in her lap. She felt a deep, soothing peace settle over her. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect. Some people would always be cruel. But today proved that many more people would stand beside her. And with Miso by her side, Emma knew she could face anything. The first morning back to her routine felt different. There was still a familiar tightness in Emma's chest, a habit formed from too many uncertain days. But today, that tightness gave way to something lighter, something like hope. Emma adjusted the strap on her backpack, feeling Miso's soft weight at the end of his leash. He trotted ahead just slightly, tail high and proud, as if he knew the path by heart. The sun beamed gently through the early morning mist, warming the sidewalk under their feet. As they approached the school gates, Emma could hear the buzz of students arriving. Laughter, backpacks slamming shut, sneakers squeaking against pavement. But instead of whispers or snickers, she heard something else. Hey Emma, morning. Hello, Miso. You guys look awesome today. Emma smiled, the real, easy kind that reached her eyes. She bent down to scratch behind Miso's ears, feeling him lean into her hand with a happy purr. They walked through the gates together, side by side, with heads held high. Inside, the day unfolded differently too. Teachers welcomed her warmly. Classmates saved her a seat at lunch. Even small gestures, holding open doors, offering help without pity, made everything feel lighter, easier. Miso sat curled under Emma's desk during classes, his steady breathing grounding her in a way nothing else could. Every so often, Emma would reach down, and his soft fur would brush against her fingertips. A simple, powerful reminder that she wasn't alone. During lunch, Emma and her friends gathered at their favorite table under the courtyard tree. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows across their sandwiches and notebooks. Miso dozed lazily at Emma's feet, one paw stretched out, perfectly at peace. I still can't believe how brave you were, said Lily, one of Emma's newer friends. Emma shrugged, a little embarrassed. I wasn't brave alone, she said, reaching down to stroke Miso. I had help from him, and from you guys too. The others smiled, and for a moment, everything felt simple again. Easy, right? As the day wound down, Emma and Miso sat outside on the school lawn, letting the late afternoon sun warm their faces. Miso stretched luxuriously across Emma's lap, purring like a tiny motor. Emma leaned back on her elbows, feeling the soft grass beneath her palms, the cool breeze brushing against her cheeks. It would have been easy to hold on to anger, to let what happened define her. But Emma knew better now. Hardship hadn't broken her. It had made her stronger. It had shown her the unshakable bond she shared with Miso, one built on trust, love, and the quiet kind of strength that didn't need to be shouted to be heard. She felt Miso's purring vibrate against her legs and smiled. They had faced darkness together, and they had come out the other side, stronger, closer, and more determined than ever to walk their path proudly. The sun dipped lower, casting the whole world in a soft, golden glow. Emma closed her eyes, savoring the peace of the moment, the certainty that whatever came next, she and Miso would face it, side by side, together, always.